Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today's lesson in biology will be looking into sexual reproduction. Last class we talked about reproduction to be the ability of living organism to reproduce its kind for the essence of the continuation in the species generation. So we also talk about the types of reproduction to be sexual and asexual. So we have talked about asexual reproduction last class. So today we want to look into the second type of reproduction, which is sexual reproduction. When we talk about the word sexual, it means the type of reproduction which involve two parents of different sexes. When we talk about sexes, we mean the male and the female sex. So sexual reproduction is a type of reproduction which involve two parents of different sexes, the male and the female. And when we talk about sexual reproduction, it has to do with each parent producing a gamete. The gamete is the male and the female gamete respectively. So the two parents produces two gametes, that is the male and the female gamete respectively. So the female gamete is called the egg cell, which is large and non-motile, while the male gamete is the sperm, which is motile and small. Now let me explain the egg cell. The egg cell is usually large, that is big enough to be seen, and it is non-motile, cannot move, while the male gamete, which is the sperm, is motile and it is small. It can be seen under a microscope. Now let's talk about what happened during fertilization. During fertilization, there is meiosis. So when we talk about meiosis, it's simply the process where a single cell divides twice to produce 4 cells containing half the original amount of genetic information. You all know what genetic information, that is the hereditary traits that gives information about a particular organism. So meiosis is a process where a single cell divides two times to produce 4 daughter cells containing half the original amount of genetic information. So these cells are our sex cells. When we talk about the cells, they are our sex cells. That is the sperm in the males and the eggs in the female. So now during meiosis, just one cell will divide 2 times to form 4 daughter cells. So these 4 daughter cells contain half the number of chromosomes of the parent cell. So it is a process that produces our sex cell or gamete. So the meiosis is a process that produces our sex cells or gametes. When we talk about sex cell or gamete, it is the eggs in female and sperm in the males. Now, still on page 1, which is the sexual reproduction. So during fertilization, I've been able to explain what meiosis is to be the process whereby a single cell divides twice to produce 4 daughter cells that contain half the original amount of the genetic information of the real cell, which is the parent cell. Now, during fertilization in sexual reproduction, there is meiosis, during which the chromosomes number is half, that is from diploid to haploid in the formation of gametes. Now, when there is fertilization, during the coming together of the two sex cells, which are the female sex, which is eggs, the female cells, which is the egg, and the male cell, which is the sperm, during the coming together of both cells, there will be fertilization. So the fertilization is what will now result into what we call zygote. So the zygote undergoes when the two cells combine. When the egg cells and the sperm cells combine, they form what is called zygote. So the zygote undergoes repeated cell division. There is repetition of cell division by the zygote which to form an embryo. So the embryo will also undergo repeated cell division and differentiation before it will now develop into a young organism that will now have similar characteristics of that of the parents. Now, let's take you and I as an example. You listening to me as a girl or a boy. You are given birth to by your parents. Which are you? Your parents, your dad, and your mom. So, the cells of both parents are what formed you as an individual. So, if you take a look at yourself, you see that you have characteristics that are similar to your dad and that of your mom, because what formed you is from both of them. So, now, the next one we'll be looking into is what we call courtship behaviors in animals. Before mating and fertilization can occur, there are special behaviors that are exhibited by animals. You and I are examples of animal, but we are just higher animals, which we want to look into. So courtship behavior is just a process in which a species responds to a certain behavioral instruction or signal from a partner. An example, if you have seen on the wall of your house, you might have seen lizards, the agama and the female lizard mating, or the hen and the cock, as in exhibiting a certain behavioral instruction or signal before mating and fertilization can occur, which will now result into reproduction. So the signals that are exhibited or courtship behaviors that are exhibited in animals include pairing. When we talk about pair means two individuals of different sex must come together before mating can occur. So when we talk about pairing, it is one of the courtship behaviors that are exhibited by animals. So pairing, this must occur before mating can take place in animals. Even in you and I, as a boy and a girl, or a man and a woman, no man will say, I want to give birth, and walking on the road, thereby grabbing a woman immediately and taking her to his house. No, to become his wife. No. So there must be pairing. The man will be on the outlook for a particular or a beautiful lady to pair with, to cut with, before mating can result into fertilization, and fertilization into reproduction. So let's explain what pairing is as one of the courtship behavior exhibited by animals. This must occur before mating can take place between the opposite sexes. Remember, I said the sexes are the male and the female. For example, in hanging flies, an example of fly is the hanging fly. So the male attract the female with a characteristic odor. The male will produce a particular odor that will be that will attract the female. You know, female will like as a nice odors. So the male attracts females with a characteristic odor. The male then offers a gift of food. The male then gives out a particular odor, which will attract the female. Then the female, the male, when the odor is passed or is perceived by the female hanging fly, it will now It will be the female fly will now be ready for the action that will now be carried out by the male hanging fly. Then the male offers a gift of food. You can see you can see now the male then offers a gift of food An example of food that is offered by a male hanging fly is the dead fly. A dead fly. He now mates with her. The male hanging fly mates with the female hanging fly while she's consuming the food. So the male hanging fly is able to what? Is able to tempt the female one with the dead fly that it has what? Offered as a gift. So the second courtship behavior in animal is display. When pairing has taken place, then display. For example, in peacocks, if you have seen peacocks around, they display. The male attracts the female by displaying his beautiful tail feathers. That is when you notice the male is ready to mate with the female, thereby exhibiting its beautiful tail feathers, displaying the beautiful tail feathers to attract the female for them to pair. That is display. Now, another one is territoriality. This involves the guarding of a particular area or site where there is abundance of food and mates, that is the female ones. So there are other things that can be available in such environment which can allow the male to exhibit territoriality. It is only male that exhibits territoriality. So territoriality is one of the courtship behavior that is exhibited by animals. So territoriality simply means the guarding of a particular area or site where there is abundance of food and mates, playmates, etc. An example is exhibited by the rainbow lizard. The rainbow lizard, which is what? The agama lizard. So, the rainbow lizard, which is the agama lizard, they exhibit territoriality by dominating the area where there is abundance of food and the female lizard. So you will notice that the agama lizard usually have orange colored head and neck. From their head to their neck is orange colored. So he will be the one guiding off or preventing other male intruder from coming to the territory, so that he will now be the only one mating with the female lizard. So he keeps off other mature male intruders, but we only allow the females to come into the territory. So the next one is the next courtship behavior is seasonal migration. Seasonal migration. So seasonal migration. What do we mean by seasonal? Season. It's a period of time. So this courtship behavior is exhibited by animals such as butterflies, eels, herrings. Eel is an example of fish. Herring is an example of fish. Then also birds. Birds also exhibit seasonal migration. So these animals, seasonal migration occur in animals whereby they move over a long distances to breed under more favorable weather and food conditions. So they try to look for an environment or a place where there is what? Abundance of food, and whereby the weather is also favorable. For example, the European birds, the garden warblers, they are examples of animals that exhibit seasonal migration. So during their breeding season, they fly to southwestern and southeastern Africa. That is the European bird and the garden warblers. They are examples of bird that can be found in the southwestern and the southeastern Africa. The European eels mature in fresh water. Remember I said example of animal that exhibit seasonal migration, they are the fish and the flies, such as the butterflies, the birds and the fish, which are the eels and the herrings. So an example of fish that carries out seasonal migration is the eels. The mature one, they mature in fresh water, but when it is time for them to breed, they move to the Atlantic Ocean for breeding. So they move to the Atlantic Ocean for breeding. So that is what we want to look into today. Now, remember I said we have for today, we talk about courtship, sexual reproduction to be the process whereby two different sexes give birth, come together to reproduce. Now, I also talk about meiosis rather. I also talk about meiosis to be what? The process where a single cell divides twice to produce 4 cells containing half the original amount of genetic information. So I also talk about the zygote. The zygote to be what results from the coming together of the two sex cells, which is the eggs and the sperm from the male and the female, resulting the fusing together of both sex cells results in what is called zygote, and the zygote results into what is called embryo. The embryo now undergoes different cell division and differentiation to develop into a young organism that is similar to the parent. So I also talk about the courtship behavior to be pairing, display, territory, and seasonal migration. So that is all for today. Remember, now the assignment or the evaluation question I have for you is or are 1. They are 1. You are to tell me the types what reproduction is. Remember, okay, I have said that last class. You are to tell me the 2 types of reproduction. Explain what sexual reproduction is, and you are to explain meiosis, zygote, and you are to explain what embryo is. So that is that about sexual reproduction for today's lesson. Thank you.